Like I said, guys, get ready for some serious irony posting.
Was it all just a dream?
God bless you, Florida. Thank you.
Did the last 4 years not really happen? Look, there's Ben Affleck. He's often in my dreams. And the taxi driver guy, he was there too. And little Stevie Wonder, he seemed so happy, like a miracle had taken place. Was it a dream? Or was it real?
Now, where have I seen this before? Somebody obviously winning the presidential election, there being widespread celebrations, and then some shenanigans coming in at the last moment and changing the outcome.
It was election night 2000, and everything seemed to be going as planned.
In New York, Al Gore is our projected winner. The Garden State is green for Gore.
Wait a minute, they were. So now they're saying that there is a problem in American elections of projecting the winner too early, and it later being overturned. So that's interesting.
We project that Mr. Gore is the winner in Delaware. This state has voted with the winner in
Excuse me 1 second. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Mike, you know I wouldn't do this if it weren't big. Florida goes for Al Gore.
CNN announces that we call Florida in the Al Gore column.
Then something called the Fox News Channel called the election in favor of the other guy.
Not to interrupt you. Fox News now projects George W. Bush.
Where have we seen this before? The media calling or refusing to call states. It's really interesting. I feel like this might have impacted a certain election in 2020.
The winner in Florida, and thus it appears the winner of the presidency of the United States.
All of a sudden, the other network said, hey, if Fox said it, it must be true.
All of us at the networks made a mistake and projected Florida in the Al Gore column. It was our mistake.
Now, what most people don't know is that the man who was in charge of the decision desk at Fox that night, the man who called it for Bush, was none other than Bush's first cousin, John Ellis. How does someone like Bush get away with something like this?
Wow, it's like the media has this incestuous relationship between politicians and stuff like that. It doesn't remind me at all of all the fake polls that came out to try to hurt Trump supporters.
Well, first, it helps if your brother is the governor of the state in question.
You know something? We are going to win Florida. Mark my words.
Wait a minute. This is literally, we heard this the other day, like with the whole Trump thing. Trump said we have all the votes we need to win, and that was taken as an admission of guilt. And this is basically the same thing.
You can write it down.
Second, make sure the chairman of your campaign is also the vote counting woman, and that her state has hired a company that's going to knock voters off the rolls who aren't likely to vote for you. You can usually tell them by the color of their skin.
Once again, this sounds very familiar. You have people in charge of vote counting who have conflicts of interest in urban areas. We have vote counting problems. We have voting machine. I thought voting machines were safe and secure.
Then make sure your side fights like it's life or death.
I think all this talk about legitimacy is way overblown.
And hope that the other side will just sit by and wait for the phone to ring. And even if numerous independent investigations prove that Gore got the most votes,
if there was a statewide recount under every scenario, Gore won the election.
It won't matter, just as long as all your daddy's friends on the Supreme Court vote the right way.
Once I feel like we've seen this movie before, or rather, this was like 12 years before we saw this movie last, but like this once again, this entire thing is election denial. There was irregularities counting the votes, there was voting machines, there was biased judicial rulings. It's just, yeah.
We have a new president-elect.
It turns out none of this was a dream. It's what really happened.
So I think, I don't know that much about how the whole Florida thing went down, but basically the people who defend Bush say Gore just wanted to selectively recount votes until he got enough to take the state. Now, where have we heard that one before? Wow.
On the day of the joint session of both the House of Representatives and the
Oh, guys, this is going to be spicy.
Senate was to certify the election results, Al Gore, in his dual role as outgoing vice president and president of the Senate, presided over the event that would officially anoint George W. Bush as the new president. If any,
so he was reading the Electoral College votes. So Michael Moore is saying, well, Gore could have just read the other Electoral College votes. He could have read the parallel ones from Florida, from the Democrats, and swung the election this way. And now he's saying we're going to have all these people who are going to object to the reading of the Electoral College votes. I thought that this was treason. I thought that this was insurrection.
Any congressman wanted to raise an objection, the rules insisted that he or she had to have the signed support of just one senator.
Mr. President, and I take great pride in calling you that, I must object because of the overwhelming evidence of official misconduct, deliberate fraud, and an attempt to suppress voter.
I mean, this insurrection. This is insurrection.
Members that under Section 18 of Title III, United States Code, no debate is allowed in the joint session.
Thank you, Mr. President. To answer your question, Mr. President, the objection is in writing, signed by a number of members of the House of Representatives, but not by a member of the Senate.
Mr. President, it is in writing and signed by several House colleagues on behalf and myself of the 27,000 voters of Duval County, in which 16,000 of them are African Americans that was disenfranchised in this last election.
Is the objection signed by a member of the Senate?
Not signed by a member of the Senate. The Senate is missing.
Mr. President, it is in writing and signed by myself on behalf of many of the diverse constituents in our country, especially those in the 9th Congressional District, and all American voters who recognize that the Supreme Court, not the people of the United States, decided this election.
Is the objection...
Well, but I thought the Supreme Court should decide things. I mean, they were able to overturn all the votes at individual state levels, and impose gay marriage on the country, despite a lot of states having passed constitutional amendments banning it in their through referendums. Wow.
Signed by a senator.
Unfortunately, Mr. President, it is not signed by one single senator.
Unfortunately, I have no authority over the United States Senate, and no senator has signed.
Mr. President, it is in writing and signed by myself and several of my constituents from Florida. A senator is needed, but missing.
Is the objection in writing and signed by a member of the House and a senator?
The objection is in writing, and I don't care that it is not signed by a member of the Senate.
See, I don't care about procedures. I don't care about the rule of law. I just want to overturn the election.
The chair will advise that the rules do care, and the signature of the senator.
Not a single senator came to the aid of the African Americans in Congress. One after another, they were told to sit down and shut up.
And it's a sad day in America, Mr. President, when we can't find a senator to sign.
The gentleman.
Well, it's once again, you have all these insurrectionists, and Michael Moore is siding with them. He's siding with these people who are putting forward debunked, fact-checked theories of electoral fraud.
Objections.
Gentleman will suspend.
Won't sign objections, Mr. President.
The gentleman will suspend.
Inauguration coverage.
Sorry, the quality is so bad. It's hard to find a HD version of this movie. This is technically HD, but it's using I'm using like a 1080p movie that uses low quality footage from like 4 years prior.
2001 on a nasty, but it could be worse kind of day in Washington.
Whoa, wait, we got these insurrectionists who are trying to have a counter inauguration And they're trying to overthrow the legitimately elected president of the United States.
On the day George W. Bush was inaugurated, tens of thousands of Americans poured into the streets of D.C. in one last attempt to reclaim what had been taken from them.
So there was like this big protest to try to overturn the results of the 2000 election. And Michael Moore is endorsing it. And he's saying it's a good thing that you had all these people.
They pelted Bush's limo with eggs.
Whoa, that violence? They undertook violence. They were throwing things. So this was a violent insurrection to try to intimidate the president.
And brought the inauguration parade to a halt. The plan to have Bush get out of the limo for the traditional walk to the White House was scrapped. Bush's limo hit the gas.
So there was a riot in which violence occurred that forced the president to flee for his life to try to overturn the results of the election.
To prevent an even larger riot. No president had ever witnessed such a thing on his inauguration day. And for the next 8 months, it didn't get any better for George W. Bush. He couldn't get his judges appointed. He had trouble getting his legislation passed.
So that was the election fraud part of it. So as you can see, it's like extremely similar, almost exactly the same as what happened in 2016. And we have the left like lionizing this, saying these people are heroes, saying that voting machines are unsecure, that America needs more real election reform. It's funny how that changes as time goes on. It's almost as if that there's something called hypocrisy.